Hey guys, so this is the first video since I got back from Korea. However, before I continued on with the Grimoire of Alice series, I wanted to talk about something before I continued on. And this video will kind of talk about my plans for the future of this channel as well. So for a bit of context as to why I'm making this video, when I was on the 10-hour flights to and from South Korea, I got to watch a bunch of movies on the plane. I watched like Dark Crystal, The Labyrinth, Inception, and the new Dungeons and Dragons movie that came out recently. And after watching these movies, I think I realized what the problem with modern entertainment is. There's this problem of sincerity. Nobody is sincere about anything anymore, it feels like. And I don't think this is necessarily a problem with only movies and entertainment. I think this is a problem with art in general, but that's kind of outside the scope of this video. So what do I mean exactly by sincerity? Well, let's take a look at the Dungeons and Dragons movie. The movie itself is okay for the most part, especially compared to a lot of other movies over the last few years. The special effects, the set design, the costumes were all fine. The problem with the movie is the dialogue and how the characters would interact with each other. The way the characters interacted with each other is very symptomatic of what I would consider, I guess, Marvel humor, or I guess even more generally as millennial humor. I mean no disrespect to millennials for the most part. It's just like, come on guys, why do you like this? This is dumb. Anyways, millennial humor is pretty easy to spot because it has some very unique identifiers to it, and these would all match up very well with what we see in the movie. The first one is just the inability to shut up. In a lot of the scenes, the characters take a lot of time squabbling over one little thing, and it takes too long for them to start doing anything to move the story forward. This is something I understand pretty well from my own experience. When writing dialogue, you really want to find that kind of sweet spot of too much or too little, and too vague and too specific. If you do it too little, the audience will have a hard time following the story and what the characters are talking about. But if you have too much, with nothing like actively happening, it gets really irritating to watch. And this movie did not find a very good balance. But what makes this even worse is point two. So point two is like self-deprecative and awkward dialogue interactions at almost every opportunity. So the characters, they talk a lot, we've established that. But what makes this even worse is that the characters are really whiny. When watching the movie, it felt like in each dialogue interaction with the characters, it's like someone always had to be the butt of the joke. And I think the reason for this is that they were trying to kind of appeal to the audience and try to draw a response of sympathy from them. Now this could work, but this is like a spice that you really want to be careful with because of how easy it is to overuse. And I feel like whoever was in charge of dialogue for this movie should have known that. It could also be that they just thought it was really funny. Because I've seen this type of behavior a lot in those who are, I guess, around the millennial age. They think it's funny to be self-deprecative. So it may just be a reflection of the people who made this movie, in which case this goes on to point three. Point three is tonal inconsistency with the movie. When I was watching the movie, I had a hard time understanding what it was trying to be. And it was really distracting. The agents in this movie, and what I mean by agent isn't a character, it's more like the tool the story uses to express itself. Like, a great example from the movie are the Red Wizards. You wouldn't really consider them characters because you could consider them more like a force that causes things to happen within the story. Um, it's like gravity. It's a thing that exists all around us, but we don't know why it exists. But that's not really important. Like, what matters is what it does. And the Red Wizards are very consistent in that aspect. But the problem is with the movie is that the agents it uses do not match very well together. The movie establishes a kind of dark comedic tone at the beginning when they're in the prison, but it immediately breaks that during the Court of Appeals scene by trying to switch it with a sort of, I guess, light comedic tragedy. And I think it just does not work here. Watching Chris Pine's character repeatedly ask for Jonathan as he's telling the story of how his wife died and how he had to resort to theft to support his family just feels really inappropriate, if you know what I mean. That scene is a really good example of points 1 and 2 I talked about earlier, being unable to shut up and awkward interactions. And this is what I mean by the movie not mixing agents very well. It uses one for a second, and then it completely switches gears to a different one. And it's basically the narrative equivalent of drinking orange juice after brushing your teeth. This scene really could have been so much better, I think, if they were to treat it with more sincerity. See, we're getting back to the main topic of this video. The tone of this movie stays pretty consistent for a while after that, but it starts to do it more towards the latter half of the movie. But let's talk about Labyrinth now. Now, this movie is almost 40 years old, so I imagine most people who are watching this video probably have never seen it. So I would definitely recommend giving it a watch, especially if you're into old fantasy movies. And I really love the practical effects of this movie, but we'll talk about those later. Now, even though Labyrinth is quite old, it is very narratively and tonally consistent across the whole movie. Although I will say, the beginning is extremely rough. I will say that. Sarah is... her performance... The performance of Sarah is just really bad at the start. But once the baby brother gets stolen by the Goblin King, and Sarah gets sent to the labyrinth, that's when things start to get good. The movie's tone maintains a very consistent blend of this kind of whimsical silliness with an atmosphere of dark oppressiveness. And as it switches out agents to accomplish something for the narrative, they all fit in very seamlessly and appropriately, which cannot be said about Dungeons & Dragons and a lot of other modern movies. Now, why do I say that modern movies are insincere? I think it may have to do with how our perceptions have changed within the last decade or so. Nowadays, when it comes to art, a lot of, I guess, objective standards have been thrown out the window in favor of a more subjective lens. I would say this is largely not a good thing. Now, it is true that beauty is in the eye of the beholder to a degree. Now, I like more dark and creepy kinds of art, kind of like the stuff that Scorn was based off of. And other people may not like that as much, but we both can agree, regardless of taste, that what a child may make out of Play-Doh and toothpicks in their elementary school arts class, or maybe what your little weeb sister in 5th grade may make, is definitely not quite as impressive. So what that means is that there must be some kind of objective quality that exists within a work that can be deemed to be objective. Now, I don't know how you would define those qualities, but I know that they're there. So when you try to be like a well-meaning teacher, you end up teaching a generation of future artists that there is no objectiveness to art, that there is no fundamental standard. That's when things start to go bad. Whether it's through arrogance or just lack of wisdom and experience, I don't know. But that's how you get what I would call generational artistic decay. And what I mean by that is, like, I've been hearing a lot of people complain and say that things back then were better, and others will repudiate them, saying that they're just being nostalgic, that they're blinded by nostalgia. And from my own experience, I'm inclined to agree with the former group, because when you take that standard away, it's a very quick road to ignorance and arrogance. Now, arrogance. That's the best answer I have as to how they could have been so sloppy with this movie. It feels like they think they can just cut corners and get away with it and justify it by saying, oh, if you don't like it, you don't have to watch it. I really don't like this mentality. This is why things get worse over time. Now, it won't always be like that. But as it currently stands, as long as we keep thinking that way, things are just going to keep degrading. Now, this is pretty much the end of the video, so I'm just going to talk a bit about future plans for this channel going forward for a minute. But I would love to hear your opinions in the comments down below. And liking this video and subscribing is always appreciated. Now, hopefully, we should be getting back to our regularly scheduled fumo content. So as for plans for the channel, I'm nearing the end of the Korean language course that I'm in. I should be done around the end of October, but after that I'm gonna have to disappear for a little while to complete some other training I have. But after that I'll finally get to go home, probably around February of next year, and once I'm done I'll finally get to go home for good, and there I should really be able to show off, so I'm excited about that. Now, what comes after that, I don't have a concrete plan exactly. However, it is not my intention to keep doing fumo videos forever. I'm sorry if that makes you sad, but you gotta look at the bigger picture. I'm more interested in the broader scope of filmmaking and entertainment. And what I do now, I view it as sort of a stepping stone to greater things. At least I hope so. Anyways, I'm glad to be back. And I'm sorry I couldn't do a 500 subscriber special. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of my loyal subscribers who have chose to stick with me for all this time. And I'll see you guys later.